My name is Emma, and 6 years ago, I married Joshua. I thought we shared the same dreams. We moved into my luxury apartment on the top floor of a tall building with a view that amazed me every time I looked outside. I worked as the head of the finance department in a trading company, and my career was moving fast. Joshua's mother, Laura, lived close by and visited us often. From the start, she made it clear she didn't like my career-focused life. "A woman's place is in the home," she would say, pressing her lips together in disapproval. "You should take care of your husband, not run off to work every day." I tried to stay calm, smiling and nodding while she went on about how a good wife should behave, but inside I was angry. I had told Joshua from the beginning that I wanted to focus on my career before having children, and he agreed. But over time, I could see him starting to change his mind under his mother's influence. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home and found Joshua and Laura sitting at the dining table, talking quietly. They stopped as soon as I walked in. I felt a cold shiver run through me. "Emma," Joshua said, his voice tense. "We need to talk." I dropped my bag, sat down, and my heart started racing. "What's wrong?" I asked. Laura spoke first. "Emma, dear, we're worried about you. All this work isn't good for you. You're neglecting your home and your husband. When are you going to think about having children?" I took a deep breath, trying to control my temper. "Laura, Joshua, and I have talked about this. We agreed to focus on our careers first and then think about a family." Joshua shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Emma, maybe it's time to rethink this. We're not getting any younger. Mom's right. The apartment is a mess, and I'm tired of eating takeout every night." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Joshua, are you serious?"
We talked about this.
"You know how important my job is to me. More important than your family?" Laura cut in, her voice sharp. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "My job is how I'm building a future for our family. I thought you understood that, Joshua." Without waiting for an answer, I stormed out of the room and locked myself in our bedroom. Lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, I had a heavy feeling this was just the start of bigger problems. Sadly, I was right. The next morning, I left for work before Joshua even woke up. As I rode the elevator down to the lobby, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't let anyone, not even my husband, stand in the way of my dreams. I had worked too hard to get this far, and I wasn't about to give it all up now. I arrived at the office earlier than usual and stayed late into the night, determined to prove my value. My effort didn't go unnoticed. A few hours later, my secretary buzzed in. "Mrs. Thompson, the president would like to see you in his office." My heart raced as I headed to the top floor. Mr. Richard, our company president, was known for his sharp business mind and his habit of surprising his staff. "Emma, come in," he said as I knocked on his door. "Have a seat." I sat on the edge of the leather chair across from his desk, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. "I've been watching your work closely," Mr. Richard began, his face hard to read. "And I must say, I'm impressed." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Thank you, sir." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "We're expanding, Emma, merging with a big company from another city. It's a huge step, and we need our best people on it." My pulse quickened. Was this going to be the chance of a lifetime? "Here's what I'm planning," Mr. Richard said. "I want to promote you. You'll be the head of a new department. But I won't lie, Emma. It's going to be hard. You'll have to work more than ever before. Are you ready for that?" I thought about Joshua and Laura, about what they wanted from me. Then I thought about all the late nights I'd spent studying financial reports, the pride I felt when my projects turned out perfectly. "Absolutely, sir," I said with confidence. "I accept. I won't let you down." As I walked out of his office, I felt like I was floating. This was everything I had been working toward for years. I couldn't wait to share the news with Joshua. Surely, once he saw how far I was going, he would understand why my career mattered so much. On my way home, I stopped at our favorite restaurant and ordered all of Joshua's favorite dishes. I picked up a bottle of champagne and a bouquet of roses. This was a moment to celebrate, and I wanted to make it special. Balancing the bags in my hands, I unlocked our apartment door. Joshua. I called out, I'm home, and I've got a surprise. I found him in the living room, stretched out on the couch with the TV blaring. He barely looked up as I walked in. Joshua, you won't believe what happened today, I said, my voice bubbling with excitement. I'm getting promoted, head of a new department. Isn't that amazing? Joshua muted the TV and turned to me. His face showed nothing like the joy I had expected. So, you'll be working even more now? Is that it? My smile began to fade. Well, yes, but think about what this means for us. We'll finally be able to afford that big house we always dreamed of. We could travel the world. Our future is set. Joshua suddenly stood up. Our future? What future, Emma? You're never home as it is. When was the last time we had dinner together? When was the last time we even had a real conversation? I held up the bags helplessly. That's why I brought dinner. I thought we could celebrate. Celebrate, he repeated, his voice cold. Joshua's voice grew louder. Celebrate? Celebrate you abandoning our marriage for your job? Celebrate that I married a woman who cares more about her career than having a family? I felt tears sting my eyes. I thought you'd be happy for me, I whispered. For a moment, Joshua's face softened, but then it turned hard again. I can't do this anymore, Emma. Something has to change. With that, he stormed off to his office and slammed the door. I stood alone in the middle of the living room, surrounded by food and champagne meant for a celebration that would never happen. I had never felt so lonely. Slowly, I put the food away and poured myself a glass of champagne. As I took a sip, one question echoed in my mind. Was this the price of success? And if it was I really willing to pay it? A few evenings later, as I was leaving the office, an idea came to me. I'd hire a housekeeper, someone who could cook and clean. That would solve Joshua's complaints about the messy apartment and lack of homemade meals. Feeling satisfied with my plan, I made the arrangements. 3 weeks later, I came home to a spotless apartment. The smell of a freshly cooked meal filled the air. I smiled, certain Joshua would be pleased. The front door opened and closed. Joshua, I called out. I'm home and dinner's ready. He walked into the kitchen, his eyes scanning the clean space. What's all this? I hired a housekeeper, I explained proudly. She cooks and cleans. I thought it would make things easier for both of us. But instead of the gratitude I expected, Joshua's face darkened. So, this is your solution? Hire someone else to do your job. That's not fair, I protested. I'm trying to find a balance. Balance. Joshua laughed bitterly. Is that what you call this? Tell me, Emma, now that you've found a replacement for yourself in the kitchen, are you planning to find a replacement for yourself in our bed too? I froze, his words hitting me like a slap. His words felt like a slap. How dare you? I hissed. I've done nothing but try to make our life better, and this is how you react. Joshua turned away. I'm going out. Don't wait up. The door slammed behind him, leaving me alone in the spotless kitchen, the untouched dinner growing cold on the table. For the next few days, Joshua and I hardly spoke. I threw myself into work, focusing on the upcoming merger. Numbers and reports were easier to deal with than the chaos my marriage had become. Then, one rare Thursday when I didn't have to go to the office, I decided to try again. I spent the morning cooking Joshua's favorite meals, set the table with our best china, and even wore the dress he had given me for our last anniversary. When Joshua came home, I greeted him with a smile. I thought we could have a nice dinner together, I said, keeping my voice light. Just the two of us. Joshua looked at me for a long moment before nodding silently. My heart lifted. Maybe this was the turning point we needed. I was just about to serve the appetizer when the doorbell rang. Confused, I went to answer it. Standing in the hallway was Laura. Laura, I said, surprised. We weren't expecting you. Oh, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by, she replied, brushing past me into the apartment. Joshua, darling, there you are. I watched in dismay as my carefully planned romantic dinner turned into an unplanned family gathering. Laura took over the conversation, slipping in sharp comments about my housekeeping and my lack of maternal instincts. You know, she said, pouring herself more wine, in my day, a woman knew her place was in the home. We took pride in caring for our husbands and raising children. I stood up suddenly. I think it's time for dessert, I said, fleeing to the kitchen. Leaning against the counter, I tried to steady myself. From the dining room, I could hear Laura's voice. Joshua, darling, you need to talk some sense into her. A woman's duty is to her family first. Everything else is secondary. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. This wasn't the life I had imagined. I had a successful career, a beautiful home. But at what cost? As Laura's lecture on traditional family values carried on in the background, I couldn't help but wonder if I had made a terrible mistake somewhere along the way. One evening, I came home later than usual, my mind still buzzing from the day's meetings. As I opened the door to our apartment, I froze. Scattered across the living room floor were baby clothes, tiny onesies, little socks, even a small pair of shoes. Joshua, I called, my voice shaking. What's all this? He came out of the bedroom with a strange look on his face. Oh, Mom brought those over. She thought it might help you get in the mood. I picked up a tiny t-shirt, my fingers trembling. In the mood for what, exactly? For starting a family, of course, Joshua said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Emma, we're not getting any younger. It's time we seriously thought about having children. That night, I quietly folded the baby clothes and put them away, my mind spinning. Was I being selfish? Was my ambition ruining my marriage? The next morning, I woke up to find more baby items placed around the apartment, a rattle on the coffee table, a baby book on my nightstand, a high chair in the kitchen. Laura's work, no doubt. I tried to ignore them, but every day there was something new. It felt like the apartment was slowly being turned into a nursery, whether I wanted it or not. One evening, I came home and found Laura sitting on the couch, flipping through a parenting magazine. Laura, I said, unable to hide the edge in my voice. I didn't know you were coming over. She looked up with a sweet, false smile. Oh, Emma dear, I hope you don't mind. Joshua said I could wait here for him. He just went out to get groceries. I nodded stiffly and went to the bedroom to change. When I came back out, Laura was standing by the window, gazing at the city skyline. You know, Emma, she said without turning around, a view like this is wasted on just two people. Imagine a child toddling up to this window, pressing their little hands against the glass, eyes wide with wonder. I felt a headache coming on. Laura, I appreciate your concern, but Joshua and I will decide when we're ready for children. She turned to face me, her eyes sharp. And when will that be, Emma? When you've worked yourself into an early grave. When it's too late. I opened my mouth to argue, but just then Joshua walked in with his arms full of grocery bags. He looked between us, sensing the tension. Everything okay here? He asked carefully. Laura's tone softened at once. Oh, everything's fine, darling. I was just having a little chat with Emma about family planning. Joshua's eyes lit up. Really? That's great. I knew you'd come around, Emma. I felt trapped, outnumbered. I need some air, I muttered, grabbing my coat and rushing out of the apartment. A few weeks later, I came home exhausted after another long day at work. But the sight that greeted me made me stop in my tracks. There was Laura, padding around the living room in fluffy pink pajamas. What's going on here? I demanded, my voice rising. Joshua came out of the kitchen with a defiant look. I've decided Mom is going to live with us. You're always at work, always gone. I'm tired of being alone. I stared at him in disbelief. You decided this without even talking to me? When are you ever here to talk about anything? Joshua shot back. I turned to Laura, who was watching with a smug smile. You can't stay here. This is my home. Joshua's face darkened. If you're not happy with this arrangement, you can leave. It felt like a slap. Excuse me? I bought this apartment before we got married. It's in my name. You can't throw me out of my own home. Laura stood, her face twisted with anger, and stepped toward me. Now listen here, You ungrateful. I held up my hand, stopping her. Don't come any closer, Laura. If you touch me, I'll call the police. Laura gasped and fell back onto the sofa, clutching her chest dramatically. Oh, Joshua, she wailed. Did you hear that? She threatened to call the police on me. Your own wife, threatening your mother. That awful job has hardened her into a monster. Joshua rushed to his mother's side, glaring at me with fury. How could you, Emma? To your own mother-in-law. I couldn't take it anymore. Without another word, I stormed off to the guest bedroom and locked the door. I spent the night tossing and turning, my mind racing with how insane everything had become. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Mr. Richard, my boss. Emma, I need you on a plane today, he said quickly. We're moving forward with the merger. I need you in Milwaukee as soon as possible. I had never packed so fast in my life. When I wheeled my suitcase to the front door, I was met by Joshua and Laura, both glaring at me. I have to go on a business trip, I said, my voice cold. It's for the merger. I'll be back soon. Joshua sneered. Don't bother coming back at all. The flight to Milwaukee passed in a blur. I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. The merger meetings were intense, demanding all of my energy and focus. But in the quiet of my hotel room, the truth would hit me hard. My marriage was falling apart. After a week of long negotiations and sleepless nights, I finally returned home. Standing outside my apartment door with my suitcase, I felt a mix of exhaustion and hope. All I wanted was to collapse into my bed and escape the world. I slid my key into the lock, but it wouldn't turn. Frowning, I tried again. Nothing. A cold dread washed over me. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding. After a moment, it opened. Joshua and Laura stood there in casual clothes, looking at me with smug, cold expressions. Why doesn't my key work? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Joshua let out a harsh laugh. I changed the locks, he said, his eyes shining with malice. You can come in if you're ready to choose your family over your precious career. I stared at him, stunned. What are you talking about? Joshua reached into his pocket and pulled out a stack of papers, waving them in front of me. He held out the papers. Divorce papers, he said. It's time to choose, Emma. Your career or your home. What's it going to be? I looked at Joshua, really looked at him. In that moment, I realized something important. I didn't love him anymore. The man I had married was gone, replaced by this bitter, manipulative stranger. Laura's sharp voice broke my thoughts. Well, we're waiting. Make your choice. I took a deep breath and stood tall. I choose my career, I said firmly, because I don't have a family or a husband. Not anymore. Joshua's face twisted with anger, but he shoved a pen at me. My hand didn't shake. I signed the divorce papers right there in the hallway. As soon as I finished, Laura grabbed my arm and shoved me toward the elevator. Good riddance, she spat, slamming the door behind me. I stood there, staring at the closed door of what used to be my home. A laugh escaped my chest, half crazy, half broken. I had just been kicked out of my own apartment, the one I had bought with my hard-earned money. Too drained to fight, I picked up my suitcases and went to a nearby hotel. A few hours later, my phone rang. It was Betty, a realtor friend, who had helped me buy the apartment. Emma, hon, how are you doing? She asked, her voice full of concern. I've been better, I admitted. Why do you ask? Betty hesitated. I've seen Joshua's posts on social media. He's saying some pretty nasty things about you. My stomach dropped. What kind of things? He's calling you a soulless career woman who destroyed her family for work. Says he sacrificed everything for you, and you just used him and threw him away. He's even talking about suing you for alimony. People are really siding with him, Emma. A surge of anger rose in me. That's not what happened at all. I didn't think so, Betty said gently. Do you want to tell me your side of the story? I gave her a quick rundown of everything that had happened over the past week. When I finished talking, Betty was quiet for a moment. Oh, Emma, she finally said. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Listen, I'm going to set the record straight with our friends and coworkers. People need to know the truth. Thanks, Betty, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. I really appreciate that. When I hung up, a storm of emotions hit me: anger at Joshua's lies, gratitude for Betty's support, and a new determination. Joshua might have taken my home for now, but I wasn't going to let him take my reputation or my dignity. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. Mr. Richards' name lit up the screen, and my stomach dropped. I took a steady breath and answered. Emma, we need to talk, Mr. Richards said, his voice more serious than usual. I've heard some concerning things on social media. I closed my eyes, bracing for the worst. Sir, I can explain. No need to explain, he cut me off. I want to hear your side of the story. Relief washed over me. I took another deep breath and told him everything. The arguments, Laura moving in, being locked out of my own apartment, and Joshua's smear campaign online. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. Then, to my surprise, Mr. Richard chuckled. Emma, do you really think I'd believe that nonsense your ex is spreading? I know you. I've seen your dedication and your work ethic. Don't let this shake your confidence. You have every right to stand up for yourself. And I want you to know the company stands behind you. Tears of relief filled my eyes. Thank you, sir. You don't know how much that means to me. A couple of days later, my phone pinged with a social media notification. Joshua was live streaming from my apartment. Curious, I tapped on the video. There he was, grinning at the camera, a film crew behind him. Hey everyone, exciting news! We're about to start a major renovation on our apartment. The crew from Extreme Makeover, Home Edition, will be here in 3 weeks to transform this place. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. But instead of anger, I felt something different: calm, steady determination. A plan was already forming. I picked up my phone and called Betty. It's Emma. I need a huge favor, I said as soon as she answered. I need you to sell my apartment fast, like within 3 weeks fast. Betty let out a low whistle. That's a tough one, Emma. What's the rush? I quickly explained Joshua's renovation plans. I need new owners in there before the film crew arrives. But Emma, how can I show the apartment? Joshua changed the locks, remember? I sent her the most recent photos I had. These will have to do. I know it's not perfect, but... Betty cut me off with a laugh. Oh, honey, you underestimate me. I've got a couple looking for exactly this kind of place in this area. They trust me. With these photos and the building's reputation, I think I can close the deal. 3 weeks flew by in a blur of work and nervous anticipation. Then, the day of the big renovation reveal finally arrived. I sat in my hotel room, laptop open, watching the live stream with bated breath. The camera panned across my former apartment, now crowded with an excited film crew and construction workers. Joshua and Laura stood proudly in the center, grinning at the cameras. We're so excited to start this renovation, Joshua said, his arm around Laura's shoulders. It's time for a fresh start, a new chapter in our lives. Just as the host was about to give the signal to start demolition, chaos broke out off camera. The door swung open, and in walked a well-dressed couple, followed by a familiar face. Betty. I'm sorry, but you can't renovate this apartment, the man said firmly, holding up a stack of papers. It belongs to us now. The camera swung wildly as confusion filled the room. Joshua's face shifted from shock to fury. What are you talking about? This is my home. Betty stepped forward, her voice calm but steady. Actually, Joshua, this apartment belonged to your ex-wife, Emma. She sold it to this couple 3 weeks ago. Your signature on the renovation documents is a forgery. The host's face darkened as he turned to Joshua. You forged documents? Do you realize how much trouble you've caused? Joshua and Laura's faces burned red as the host scolded them on live television. The scandal played out in real time, with millions of viewers watching as Joshua's lies collapsed around him. I couldn't help but laugh, feeling both relief and victory. It was finally over. I had won. With the money from selling the apartment, I made a bold choice. I bought a small, charming house in the same city where our company had just finished its merger. It felt right, almost poetic, to start fresh in the same place where my career was rising. To my surprise and joy, Mr. Richard appointed me as the head of our newly acquired company. It was a big challenge, but one I was more than ready to face. A few weeks later, I saw Joshua again, this time in court. He had the nerve to demand half of the money from the apartment sale, plus alimony. I sat back with quiet satisfaction as the judge rejected every one of his claims, pointing out his attempt to steal my property and the forged documents. As we left the courthouse, Joshua approached me. The arrogance was gone, replaced by desperation. "Emma, please," he begged. "I'm sorry for everything. Can't we start over? Give our marriage another chance." I looked at him, really looked, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just freedom. I laughed softly, but firmly.
No, Joshua.
We can't start over, but I can start fresh. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I walked away, feeling lighter than I had in years. My career was soaring, I was leading a successful merger, and I was respected by my peers and superiors. Best of all, I had a beautiful new home, one that was truly mine.